This is IBM Museum. So I have the IBM PS2 model P70 back up on the bench for this video. And it is turned around. I do have the back cover off. We want to be working on the areas of the back and the adapter for the purposes of this video. We're not going to have any display from the plasma screen if I'm going through and getting the video for external display. And I do have the diskette drive, the functional diskette drive around the front. Later on when I work with these, I'll probably go through and work with the diskette drive connector here just to pull it away. I mean, I'll have to undo a few screws and just put a temporary cable and drive if I have to go through. I do have at my feet, I've got those other three. This is easier accessing this connection than going through and opening up the bay and pulling all the diskette drive and everything else that I've done here. Here's the diskette drive that was in there. I go through and I tape all the component parts together. Sometimes if it's really involved, I go through and take pictures or make sure of where I take off whatever parts. This is fairly self-explanatory for the level I go in here. But with a working diskette drive and going through, to add a memory adapter, we want to have a diskette. Now I do have the original reference diskette here. I'm actually going to make a copy of this, and this is an older version. I mean, I can check to see if it would even function, but I'll probably just go through and make a copy of that. There's an effort on that we're going through and recreating the images of what the labels on the IBM diskettes look like to be able to print our own and have that. And each one of these has an FRU based on the version, and it can even be language specific on a lot of these PS2 models. So there is a newer version online that we're going to make. The start of that process in the diskette drive that I have connected on the far side, I have a diskette that we're going to use, and I'm going to go through and format it in this drive just so I'm sure that the diskette is functional for one, and later on when I copy over the files from the other system, even though that goes through and moves to the files and everything else, the indexing is done on the diskette based on this unit. And we just have to do a format /A. I don't know what version we have of DOS. We could do a conditional, or rather an unconditional format if it recognizes that switch. Okay. And so even finding out what okay, I would have thought that formatting a diskette in A, maybe I don't need the slash, and then /U for the switch. Okay, there we go. And new diskette. Okay, and I can go through and pause this during the process. I don't have the, well, let's go through. We can get the video up of that as it just goes through and formats that diskette. I'll go through and I don't have my tweener system. That's that Windows XP 32-bit system with the diskette drive, real diskette drive. And I say that's a tweener because in this instance, it's between the internet and the model I'm working on. In other words, the place to generate a reference diskette or whatever I need to do to get that diskette image created from the internet, downloading the file from the internet and going through and getting on diskette and then running it on the system. And I don't have the video for that. I've got that elsewhere, and I'll just probably go through and I'll I'll have my back to the camera anyway, and it'll be on screen as I do that. And of course, I do have the keyboard, turned around, move down. The cable there is long enough. It's on a coiled cord, just like a regular PS2 model would have. And we could go through and label that ref, but it's fine. Okay. And we diskette complete to try and make a reference diskette out of it. I'm going to go through. I will pull up my tweener system on the screen. And I haven't even gone through and prepped for the video by downloading the reference diskette. I'm going for the exe file here. Straight away, the self-extracting image, since I'm on a 32-bit machine. The zipped image, that has where you can use WinImage or some other program under, if you have like 64-bit Windows for extracting that. And what I'll do is I'll probably go through and I do have my downloads. So that's alphabetically. Have to see, yeah, since I already had this directory up, I'm going to go through and I'll copy that. We're going to go all the way back to my computer. We're going to get on that C drive. And I'm going to put it back in. I'm going to put it in the reference disk directory of that DOS partition. And we've got P70 is the name of the executable. So let's go through. We can get a command prompt running here. Okay, we're going to go over to the C drive. We're going to change directory to the ref disk. Okay. And we should have that file, the last one. It's sorted by date, probably here. And so we're going to go through run. We're going to do the self-extracting image. So we do the P70. Okay, standard IBM extraction method. And I know you guys can't see the screen so much here, but okay. I'm going to start that process. Now this is the, let's flip back as we wait. I can go through and describe what I have. I had 3 of these adapters come in. Nice, big anti-static bag that I can reuse for planers. Pretty big. And this is we've seen a little bit of this on the 16-bit version before, but this is it's 32-bit microchannel adapter, and it has the 4 2-megabyte SIMs on it. So this is 8 megabyte of memory. And there is also 8 megabyte in for 2 megabyte sims that's on the P70 planar. So we'll have 16 megabyte total. And that's the easy portion with an IBM adapter, ultimately, IBM memory adapter. The easy way to get the up to 16 megabyte on a 386DX class CPU based system. And this system is able to run more. I do have even the one P70 that set aside that runs Windows 95. It has like 32 megabyte. It doesn't have an IBM memory adapter. But just for the purposes of this demonstration, I want to run through and effectively install this adapter. So we can probably go through. The extraction is complete. We'll just press the enter key, and I'll get cycled over to, we're going to eject, okay, we need to work with the reference disk a little bit here. In that, I'm not so certain that it has the ADF for that memory adapter. So we're going to go through. I do have that up on the screen. And so just as a brief thing, this is where I've got that reference diskette image from. And I went through and got the executable there for that P70 386 reference disk, and it's version 1.04. As I said, the zipped image is that image file that you could go through and use the WinImage program or other utilities to extract that. Okay, so let's go through. I do have. Okay. And we'll go through and let me pause the video and get that memory adapter page up. Okay, so here we are for that. And that's the system that's the page I have on my tweener system. I need to grab both the ADF that has there and also that init file or initialization file. And that's a critical piece for the memory adapters, microchild memory adapters. So we're going to click on that. We're going to save the file. And we will go through and also for the initialization file. And those are typically in the format instead of the at sign in that C, and then they have the okay. Directory, and I can simply go through and swish and do a send to. I know that you to see that screen up, but that's all I'm doing. Okay, and the interesting thing is it's telling me that that file's already on there, so I'm going to select no for that. Let's look for the initialization file, which is here. I'm going to do the same thing, and that initialization file is probably also on the reference diskette already. So we learn, and even for the initialization file, it's interesting that that is different. The reference diskette is actually a bigger file, and I'm not sure of file dates, and we may have to look at that. That and that we just have to look at for cleanup to make sure of why there's a difference. And grabbing didn't harm anything. We learned that those are already the default reference diskette. So there's people that use, or IBM intended that to be that this memory adapter be used on the P70. So let's go through and, well, we can hide the browser capture. I'm going to go through and I will get the reference diskette in the drive, just prepped for booting from that. Once through, I'm going to turn the unit off. And we could go through, maybe even best, just temporarily pull that power cord. And the P70, it's got the 32-bit adapter on this upper slot 1. The plasma display adapter is behind that. And that actually comes out to be in the third slot. I mean, you can see that's effectively a 16-bit microchannel slot that'll be covered by this, having this memory adapter in place. Now below that, on the lower side, this 16-bit connection, microchannel connection, is for the adapter in slot position 2. And the DBA ESDI drive is effectively slot number 4 on this. And they put that on that DBA ESDI drive, just like they do for the MUL 50Z, the MUL 70s. They have that on effectively on slot 4. Now I'm going to get in. I mean, as I go through and install this adapter, I can go through and explain. But we're going to go through and get into the system information tool once I complete this process. Get the handle, and that handle's just going to fall over as okay, and that's easy enough to where I've got that adapter in place. No tools necessarily involved, just that thumb screw. And sometimes the thumb screws can be. We're going to go in the reference diskette in the drive. So I'm going to go through and power on. And we will get switched over. We can do the switching over so I can see it up on the screen here too. But I'm going to run through the system information tool because the last time we ran it, as we saw, it recognized one adapter on the P70, and that's effectively a bug. With the 2 real adapter slots, it should have shown at least 2. I do see on the system information tool where it does suppress that 4th adapter slot on the not on the 50Z because it doesn't support that model, just 8 adapters. But for the 55SX with that DBA ESDI drive on slot 4 for the MUL 70s, we've seen it suppress that information. Now, I did ask Major Tom, we're going to correct the bug of the P70, and I thought, hey, let's go through and make it so it doesn't suppress the slot number 4. Okay, was not found. It's a good thing I still had my tweener system up. So we are going to go through, we're going to briefly eject the diskette. The tweener system, as you can see, has gone over to the IBM screensaver again. Okay, so let's go back to that downloaded directory. We're going to go through, go to the folder. I'm going to follow through with sending that to A. And we're going to have to figure out why that besides the difference in file version, and then so our other FCFF, okay, I think I have the right one there, and it should warn me the same way that the file's already there. And that's effectively the ADF. Both of those are 97 bytes, so it looks like the same. Okay. So is it all in that initialization file, maybe? Because I'm relatively certain that I have the right ADF for that. So we're going to go through and press enter again. Okay. So we're going to get into an issue here. Figuring out why. Okay. And it's just not going to enable that adapter. It'll probably still warrant. So I'm going to leave the reference diskette in there just for the thought of seeing the time and date. I could have put a fresh battery in there. I mean, I don't know, with that 6-volt battery, normally those things last quite a while. I don't know how much voltage it still has on it. I could go through and put a fresh battery in there that I've got, those $4 blister pack batteries. But just running through it, it seems like it's holding all the date and time and configuration otherwise. And that is exactly what I have there. But we'll see this in so we'll see if we can go through. We're going to select no in this instance. We're going to say set configuration. Or actually, we should have gone through and set features for the date and time. But let's see what it tells us. Okay. Escape, cancel. Okay. So let's go through, let's try and just view the configuration. And it gives slot 1 unrecognized adapter installed. Slot 2 empty. Slot 3 being that integrated fixed disk controller. Okay. And I thought the plasma adapter, I'm trying to remember. Okay, and it's not for the plasma adapter that the failing. It's for that memory adapter. Okay, did I go? I wanted to get out to set the time and date. And it wanted to go through and reboot. Okay, well, time and date is not important. I think we can go through and run the system information tool. And I did even have that I don't even need to copy that from diskette. I think I had the version I wanted to go through. Or do I? No, I want to move over because this is the new version that Major Tom did. It's on this diskette. Okay. I'm just going to go through F1, and it's going to drop us in the basic. Okay. Am I maybe able to boot from that system information tool? If it's not wanting to boot from the hard drive, and I want to leave that memory adapter in place because I want to see what okay. Okay, so we're able to boot to the SIT diskette. Let's just kind of do a directory because I wanted to show, and I don't have the original version of SIT. I've gone through and I've marked them with that underscore in the version, and of course we booted from command.com. It's and I have that version that some of the basics are corrected. Some initial bugs that are corrected there. The string of a Model 80 for one, and then that data streaming support being reported correctly is another thing that he corrected. But this SIT revision B or version B is a he went through and did this today, which is actually tomorrow for him. And he increased the amount of the adapters that the relevant model supported. In particular, the P70, being that it reported just one slot version before, he expanded that to reporting 4. And I guess the easy way to tell is we just need to get in there. And it'll go through on the splash screen. It does display the update information as far as it being version 1.10b. And in our adapter information, he's gone through and expanded that to the 4 slots. And it's funny because I talked to him a little bit earlier, and I was worried about it recognizing that the DBA ESDI drive. I thought it would report it as unknown. That please report for the what's in slot 3, that IBM integrated fixed disk controller. That is wonderful that shows correctly. And in this instance, we see on slot 4 that IBM P70 plasma display controller. It's at the top of that. So we learn from here, and the slot 2 is that 16-bit adapter, and it's the slot, the lower slot, and we learned, as we know, that slot is not populated. But we learn now that in slot 1, it's FDFF is the ADF. And does it have it identified correctly? So we're not going through the right file here. Okay. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to find the correct location of the file that we need for both that ADF and initialization file. And I will be right back. We'll be able to display that on the screen. We'll be able to use the tweener system to swish over the right ADF and initialization file to the reference diskette and run through. Now, even though it would have displayed for slot 1 of what adapter was failing in this case, but if we would have been trying to plug something in slot 2, that 16-bit connection, on the P70 prior to this bug fix that Major Tom did today, we had not even seen what it is, what ADF we needed or anything like that. So, that's great that's corrected now. It's great that it's going to show up correctly on the other models that I kind of wanted to see and not suppress that integrated fixed disk controller. But let me locate the correct file, and then I will return and we will continue. Okay, I am back, and it's interesting because I did find a reference. I looked at the ADF list first off and didn't find an FDFF. So I went onto the news group, the comp.sys.ibm.ps2.hardware group, and searched for that FDFF. The interesting thing is I brought back some references. When I went through and checked those out, now what I did is I used that excellent area of the search on the Ardent tool to look for things too. And I went to the page, the one listing it has for the FDFF looks to actually be a typo. It's referring to the FDDF adapter. What I think I have happening here, and we're going to go through and power down the system, I think that it's because normally what we're looking for is the FCFF, and that's just one bit of difference between the C hex and D hex. And I think it's where on I just think it may be a dirty contact or something else. And you have two others of the adapters as well. So I'm going to go through. We're going to escape on out. I will go through and power off the machine. We can swap back in the reference diskette just while we're there and ejecting the set diskette. Yeah, it's just a single between FCFF and FDFF. It's just there may just be a dirty contact. We didn't have any other adapters in there to know if it coin. That's a better way. In fact, let me get through. I'm going to show the webcam view since we have the machine off. And that is tight. It's been in my new penny. And I do have slotted screwdrivers around here as well. And all I'm trying to do is go through, and this is a I mean, I haven't looked at the P70 page, but this may be to where it's got this one screw that where the this comes out, this assembly comes out somehow, or I'm mainly wanting to go through and just reseat it to the planer. I mean, I could get out those other adapters if we go, you know, if it goes through and fails the adapter again. I'll try those other adapters because it may be something on the adapter rather than on the machine. I don't have the details with let's get me a little bit more. That's a slotted Aura Phillips. It actually has some ground connections there. I want to make sure I get that screw so it doesn't get loose. And that's fixed down in other places. So there's not an easy way. Is there a little trick that I'm just looking to go through and just to pull that out just a little bit. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that is completely unseated from the planar connection. Okay. And we just do a reverse order to where we get that ground. Could rename I think that's not really desirable way of making things work for what is likelihood of either an adapter that is not reporting the correct POS ID that it has, or adapter ID, due to maybe a failure on the board, or just a bad connection. And I think that these are, really appear to have any dirt on them or anything else. Of course, I don't want to drop them. And these have that Seco Epson logo on them. Again, the little mountains. And there we have the part number 90X9369. I'm really sure that we have the right get that handle out of the way again for reinserting. I should have everything loosened up once again, but of course it doesn't go in as easy as it did. Okay, there's some nubs on that bracket. Okay. Just make sure that those back bracket. Okay. We didn't have the power plug pulled for that, but I mean, I had the unit off. Normally you want to go through the extra step and pull the power. We have the reference diskette in there. I could have gone through and I could, you know, pull the battery, things like that, just to make sure I've got going through the, you know, there's not any lingering configuration issues there. But it's a learning experience. We're a little bit over 40 minutes recording time. Okay, we have the reference diskette in there. Okay. And we're going to select yes again. I'm going to wait a little bit to speak here. Okay. That time, just receipt and everything worked. I left the reference diskette in. I'm going to reboot. I'm going to apply the correct time and date. And we've run through the system information tool. Certainly I can go through and we can run it again now that the adapter is recognized correctly, just to look over those nice selection of 4 adapter slots being listed, even though 2 of those are, you know, real. Slot 1 being a 32-bit, slot 2 being, why are we getting a 201 error now? That's memory. So we could have a bad module. And what I may go through there and do with that, and we'll wait till a power down. I want to go through and we'll see, it'll probably flag the memory error. We're actually going to select no. What I'm going to do here, we're going to go down to set features, set date and time. You know, why not when we're in here? And this system, I think we saw this yesterday, it just thinks it's 2002. We're still the 2nd here, even though Major Tom is on the 3rd. Really doesn't matter, but we're going to go through and set that time. Okay. So now that we go through, in fact, let's go through and look. I think we figured out through set that there's only one revision level for this. And the diagnostic level, that's the reference diskette image, the version that we have in there. So with this, once we press enter, I'm actually going to go through, we're going to power down. And I can probably work with and I have a bunch of other but the thing, you know, it can be just a little thing that's affecting. putting a support for the end of this into the adapter. Doing all this stuff and not even aware that you guys aren't watching close. You're having to watch through the other webcam. I'm just going through and I'm unseating these, gently moving the plastic. And this plastic doesn't look so brittle. It's doing pretty good. And just going through and reseating that. I did see a little bit of dust on the top, and it looked like the Sims had some. Otherwise, we go through the diagnostic of figure out which Sim it is. And again, I had power connected during that time of going through and unseating the Sims, and maybe should have followed a little bit better practice of going through and pulling the power before I work on the machine. Still with the 201, but we've gone through and we've reseeded those Sims. So remember, we could be different from what the machine thought as previous. One of those Sims maybe not working, or even more than one Sim maybe. Okay, and we're going to choose to automatically configure the system. And what I may do if this fails again, I may get out one of those other two adapters. And every one of them's loaded with the 4 2 megabyte Sims, making 8 megabyte. Okay, and we don't necessarily need the reference diskette in there this time. In fact, I'll go through and I'll eject it just in case otherwise. And it'd be wonderful getting back to being able to boot from the hard drive of the system. Okay, going and doing a count a little bit better of the RAM. And I'm still going to have, and we'll probably look at the back of a P70 a little bit closer, especially this one that I have on top. And that's the P70 that didn't boot up. And it's got a CPU on there that I've not seen. I mean, I'll probably not really necessarily go and show that. I mean, that'll come up on another video that I can go through for checking that. I have my postcode reader with the little adapter, you know, Microsoft mouse to USB adapter. I'm using this as a power for the postcode reader. And then I have my comb, my Intel comb to, you know, and other replacement CPUs that I can try swapping that around just to see if we can get that unit working. So, good thing here, booted to the hard drive, didn't show any error otherwise. And I'm going to go through and actually from the diskette, I'll just do a, and these are nice little keyboards too that they have on the P70, and kind of a real useful way. And maybe I can have that and we'll show a little bit of that for another video on how they go through and things like that. Okay, so we're just going to pull that diskette out just because, and we're going to go through and run the system information tool from the P70 again. Get that nice little splash screen version 1.10B. Hot off the press from Major Tom. Okay, for the adapter information, and FCFF identifier being seated in there. I don't think it was on the P70, although it could have been. But I don't know how these memory adapters, the three, and I'll be aware now of the other two I have it still in the box, still in the nice anti-static bags, just like I had for this one. Got those in today. I do have some without the SIMs on them as well, but I'll just be aware to go through and make sure that those contacts are clean, because it can go through and misidentify the adapter. And also those SIMs, if one doesn't read correctly, it still flags as a memory error. It's seen it, with the PD bit, it's seen it register, but thinking that the SIM failed for that. So clean your contacts too, or that's an angle to check. I'm glad that this went through on the video to present itself this way, to make it a learning experience. And as you know from me in the past, I just roll with it, warts and all. Whatever the system is going to throw at me, whatever's going to happen, let's just keep that camera rolling, because we're going to learn together. And I know to check the area and check the contacts and reseat things and all that. But we had to go through and use the system information tool a little bit to find out what adapter ID it thought it was, realizing that that's wrong, going through and double checking, getting back on the internet, searching again, to learn, hey, it's just being, it's misreported. You have all the adapter right and everything else. So, glad it showed that way. I got to show off a little bit, even though we didn't see the screen display of that tweener system, how helpful those things can be. Just to be able to, an XP machine, you run end-of-life Firefox, but you can still get online. You can get on the Ardent Tool site. Major Tom has a search tool built into that site. You can get information. It's indexed very well. He's set up the structure for that, for getting the information that you need, going to the areas. I've tried to demonstrate that in my videos to how helpful that can be. I use that search feature that he has all the time. And you have to recognize that it's a Google search feature. It's going to go through, and the end result is going to bring up some shopping stuff for the first few links. But then the other half is those links, or it'll tell you no search results found. But it'll list the pages that you're searching for on that site. So, kudos to Major Tom for having that set up. I know he's a busy guy. I've been very grateful to interface to him the last few days with some of the stuff that's come up. And he's been very responsive to, we help each other out in presenting this information and gain the bugs out of the system information tool to the point of where the program is going to work like it's supposed to. And I'm still going through the development of what I want from the system information tool, and the aspect of, for the, we're getting into the Mullen processor. And I'll delve into this a little bit deeper with the other video, that being correctly reported. But the CPU that's reporting here and the megahertz speed, in this case, that's correct, because we have an older Intel 386DX And I can go through on probably that other video of going through and being focused on the processor aspects. I'll go through and run the UNPC tool and we'll look at more at that CPU reset signature and in particular because I mean on the CPUs that I don't know what they are, I want to once I get them running, I want to see what CPU ID report on there because there's heat sinks that are covering up a label. I don't want to pull things free. I just want to try and identify it in software. And I know on the other ones, and I do have even some upgrade CPUs that I can try on this other system. These Texas Instruments, you know, and these are clock doublers, things like that. I think for the DLC, I don't know. I'll have to check that out a little bit further. But I've also got to where, you know, the Intel CPUs, and I go through. I know that the built-in webcam is not going to be so good, but I have pencil markings on these of the CPU stepping values and things like that, so that I know that these CPUs have worked in the past. But we're going to go through and try and get this other P70 working. That I don't know if that'll be the next video necessarily. We'll end up probably the way that they kind of stretch out in there. But we've got the system going. We've got the okay, so we want to go through. Okay, and I think we saw that before on, yeah, when we went through the system information tool before. But now, you know, this system has 16 megabyte of RAM on it. Easy way, you know, and the 8 megabyte on the system planar, 8 megabyte on that new adapter we put in there, had to work with a little bit to get it going. But we did. And we saw the update that Major Tom did to the system information tool and how those adapters fixed that bug where only one slot was known, and now we've got all four showing and showing correctly. Even identifies, and Major Tom has gone through for the system information tool to list the supported systems and supported adapters. I didn't know it had the thing about the plasma display controller or the IBM integrated fixed disk controller in there as well. But that is like super cool. It's got that stuff. And so everything here is showing correctly. We don't have any adapter in that 16-bit slot, but everything else is showing up in a beautiful way. So, you know, gave you thanks to Major Tom. He goes through and he makes comments on the videos. And, you know, thank him for all that work. He goes through there and even corrects me, you know, my little statements of big Indian. And that's not Indian with an I, that's Indian with an E. And the originations of that, and that's how bytes, you know, you would say how the byte structure is, whether the most significant byte is shown first or least significant byte shown first, and it's actually the Indian, the end, you know, was the last byte in this case. And that's actually from the book Gulliver's Travels, that book long ago, and it talked about the Lilliput and the people that broke their egg first on the big end or broke the egg on the little end first in order to eat it. I guess a boiled egg maybe. But that's where that expression came from, and it was applicable to computers in that way, and you can look up that information. But no doubt in that other video we're going to touch on the CPUs of the P70. We'll probably get looking back in the UNPC book to see how the system looks them up. And we know from SIT that is a hard-coded value that it reports. It doesn't go through and check the CPU. My version that's going to be a replacement is going to go through there and check that CPU and give the CPU ID values and things like that. So coming up right on an hour of recording time. If you enjoyed this content, please click on that like button. I know that we're going to get some more subscribers in here soon, just with the videos I'm doing. But if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to my channel. There's going to be fabulous content like this. I'm going to go over warts and all of what happens. But that is all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.